Hello, everyone. My guest today is Mike Tuchen. He joined Talend as CEO recently, but before that was CEO of Rapid7, a security software startup that provides one of the leading security assessment platforms. He joined Rapid7 in 2008 and grew the company by 10x in just 4.5 years. Rapid7 was consistently one of the fastest growing companies in Boston and was recognized as the best place to work by the Boston Business Journal. All right, Mike, are you ready to take us to the top?
You bet. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining. So tell us about Talend. What's the business model and what do you guys do?
So Talend is a software company that's all about helping companies take advantage of their data, right? We started out years ago because companies have an enormous amount of data that they simply can't use because it's in the wrong place, it's in the wrong format, it's dirty, it's inconsistent. And until you solve those problems, you can't use your data. So that's what we solve.
And what's the revenue model? Is it pure SaaS?
Yes, it is pure subscription.
Okay. And take us more here. Give us the backstory. What are so we get a sense of the kinds of customers using you. Are we talking customers paying on average, $10 a month, 10 grand a month, 10 million a year? What are you guys generally playing in?
Customers tend to be spending, $50,000 to $60,000 per year on average per customer.
That's helpful. Okay, good. So 50 grand a year. And then give us more of the backstory here. So it said you joined the company. Were you? How did the initial founders bring you in? And were they seducing you or were you seducing them?
They were seducing me. So the initial founders started the company in France. There were two French entrepreneurs. And they grew the company from $0 to $50 million in revenue.
In what years were this?
They started the company in 2005, and I came in 2013. So over 8 years, they grew it from $0 to 50 million. And we're really looking for someone to take it to the next level and then ultimately take it public. And so they and the board were looking to bring me in.
Got it. So 2013, you joined. They're doing about $50 million in ARR. Update us today. Where are you at in terms of total customers using the platform?
We have over 1,500 customers using the platform right now. And business has been growing over 40% a year for the last couple of years. And, right now analysts are estimating that we'll get between 145 to 150 million in revenue in this calendar year. Last calendar year. Sorry.
Last calendar. Yeah, I was going to say, if I take 1,500 customers today times an ACV of, call it 50 grand at a minimum, you're doing about $6.2 million a month currently, or about 75 million bucks in ARR today. Is that accurate generally?
No, that's actually way low.
Okay. What's wrong? My customer count number, or is your ARPU your ACV is too low?
Well, what's going on is a couple of things. The deal size I cited is actually an upfront deal size, and then customers add. We have a 120% net expansion rate every year. So the total size of a customer grows over time above the initial deal size. That's thing number one. Thing number two is I said over 1,500, and so the number is over 1,500. It's not exactly 1,500.
Got it. Okay, so where are you at today? You said your analysts are predicting you'll break 100 million this year, or you've already passed 100 million?
No, we did 100 million in revenue in 2016, the year that we went public.
Got it. Okay, so
in 2017, last year, analysts estimated we'll do between 145 to 150. We haven't released our earnings report for Q4, so I can't be any more precise than that.
Got it. Okay, good. But generally speaking, still healthy 40% year-over-year growth.
That's right.
Okay,
grew 40%.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. A lot of people, they say once you make a man or woman wealthy, it's very hard to motivate them. Or once you make them rich, it's hard to stay motivated. You took the company public. You made it to the top of the hill. What's still motivating you?
Well, I tell you what, we're just getting started. We are right now a pimple on the tail of the flea on the dog. I mean, we're such a small part of an enormous market that, for us, the opportunity is not to take a company public, but to really be the leader in an enormous market, right? Where the people spend $16 billion a year solving the kind of problems that we solve. And for us at, rounding to 150 million, we are such a small part of that business right now that we have a lot of room to grow in the coming years.
How do you look at, actually yesterday we had Billy on from DataStax. Now, they've obviously raised significant capital. You could argue the 109 million they did in 2014 was essentially going public. But how do you look at a company like that in terms of either partnering with them or, preventing them from eroding your market share or how do you view a company like that?
So they're basically one of a number of partners. And so anyone that has a database technology, DataStax clearly being one, or a data processing technology, like all of the big Public cloud companies have both databases and data processing technologies. Our friends over at Databricks have Spark. All of those players are partners of ours. And we leverage all of them because our customers want to use the best processing technologies in the world and the best data technologies in the world. And so we help them take advantage of all of that technology. And for us, we're kind of a Switzerland in between all of that.
If acquisitions to drive growth became a key part of your strategy, is DataStax too big for you guys to acquire?
Most definitely, and also a little anti-strategy, because once we were to, really be a database technology company ourselves, we'd be competing with a whole bunch of our partners, right? Which would be a little hard for us. Position-wise, it'd be hard for us to play.
Yeah,
for us, when we think about acquisitions, we've done a few. We just did one a couple of months ago. Most of what we target tend to be relatively smaller companies.
How small?
Well, we just did one that had zero revenue.
You can't get much smaller than that. Yeah.
Yeah, they had about 15 to 20 people. And that's really kind of directly in the target wheelhouse for us. And, for us, zero or a couple $1 million in revenue, but most importantly, a great team and great technology that, either deepens some technology that we already are building or broadens us into new markets that we're not currently serving. That's exactly for us in the wheelhouse of what we're looking for. Growing the business through acquiring revenue is historically a much riskier game to play at an early stage. And so we're shying away from that right now.
Name 2 markets you're really interested in right now, whether you're going to build it yourself or, acquire something or whatever.
It's hard to name markets that we're not already in, but I can certainly name some of the markets that we've been building into in the last couple of years that we're not yet the leader in, but we're on the path.
Name 2.
So one of them would be the self-service data integration market. And that's a market where companies are, rather than using data engineers, developer kind of people to solve their data integration problems, to blend data together and clean it up and so on, allowing anyone who's just a data analyst to do it for themselves. If you're comfortable using Excel and a tool like Tableau, then here's a way for you to solve that same kind of data integration problem in a much, much simpler approach. That would be one. Another approach is data governance. One of the problems that every customer has is figuring out what happens, what happened to the data along the way, right? For this data in this financial report, where did this particular field come from? And what happened to it along the way? And then, by the way, if I were to change this field in this database, what's impacted, right? Which other databases, which other field, which other downstream things get touched? So those kind of impact analysis and so-called lineage of where does something come from, those are real important problems for companies to solve as they become more and more data-driven.
This is analogous to the tomato in Walmart, where you want to track the embodied energy and the carbon footprint, where it was grown in China, shipped to the US, and you want to understand all the things that factor that whole supply chain, right?
Exactly. That's the data version of that same problem.
Very cool. Walk me through more of the story. What incentivized you to join, right? Walk me through that. And the reason is we have a lot of listeners that might be at the same stage, call it 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 million in ARR. They're looking to bring in a CEO. How should they approach that?
For me, it was a no-brainer. So what I was looking for was a big market where I like the competitive setup, a company that had a great team and a unique competitive approach to that market. And every company that's looking to bring in a CEO is going to have problems. And so the questions were, what were the problems the company had? And they're ones that I felt comfortable that I could solve. They were right in my wheelhouse. And, for Talend, it was a $16 billion market. It was dominated by the big legacy incumbents, the IBMs and Oracles and Informaticas of the world. We had a unique and wildly disruptive approach. And we had a team that had a great technology team and a great product, but weren't as strong on the sales and marketing side. And all of obviously an eminently fixable problem. What
are you guys at today in terms of total team size?
We just crossed over 900 yesterday, apparently.
9. That's a lot of expense. Just kidding.
We're cash flow positive.
Oh, are you? That's great. I was going to say, if your team's listening, I'm sure some are. They'd kill me if I just categorize them as an expense. They're much more than that. But that's good. You're cash flow positive, 900 people. And what percentage of those, or how many of them, are sales and marketing?
It's a good question. Probably, this is a rough estimate, somewhere between 30 to 40% is going to be sales and marketing. And nearly a similar number is going to be engineering, right? Those are going to be your two biggest expenses in any, strategic technology company.
Got it. Last few economics questions before we wrap up with the famous five. How many dollars do you have to spend to drive an additional dollar in ARR today?
Right now, I'm going to flip that number around and use a slightly, actually less favorable to the company metric, but it's the right metric. The way we look at it is, how long does it take? How many months does it take to pay back the gross margin of an ACV subscription, right? And that's the most stringent measure, and it's the exact right measure, I believe, because it tells you if that number is relatively short, you should be piling on the coals and investing in sales and marketing. If it's relatively long, you need to fix it.
What is relatively short?
Ours is about 18 months right now.
Okay, is that short or long?
That is a very good number that compares favorably with most companies that are at scale in the business today.
Got it. You're talking about other public companies at your size. They may be spending more than that. That's
right. And, there's a whole number of really egregious companies. In our history, when I came in, we were spending, it was taking us well over 2 years and probably 2.5 years to pay back our ACV gross margin of the sales and marketing expense. And so the first job that we did was to fix our sales and marketing economics. And so when we benchmarked ourselves back then, we did a whole bunch of benchmarking. We were definitely in the bottom quartile. And then as we went public, we were right around the middle of the pack. And right now we're sitting, right at the in the top quartile. And so, that transition has really been all about improving sales productivity and improving that gross margin payback period.
And just to round up the numbers associated with that equation, what is your gross margin today?
87%.
Okay. So you're taking essentially your ACV of 50 grand, the gross margin ACV would be obviously multiplying times the 87%. So your gross margin ACV is 43.5. And what you're saying is it takes you about, that times almost another full year. So call it somewhere around 70 grandish or 18 months to get that fully paid back.
That's exactly right.
Got it. Interesting. That's really interesting. What other metrics things had to change as you went public?
So for us, when we were contemplating going public, the first question that we had was really what was the financial story that we wanted to build? And so we did this, obviously when I came in 2013, went public in 2016, 2.5 years later. And so what we decided was based on our historical roots as a European, as a French company, we had a much more conservative financial profile than most U.S. companies. And so we felt like the approach that we're going to take was going to be a balanced plan approach, where we had not just what we call these days a growth at any cost kind of model, where you're willing to burn crazy amounts of money and have a kind of a negative 80% and negative 100% EBIT kind of profile, but instead have a model that had moderate losses, being cash flow neutral or cash flow positive in the year of the IPO, which we were, and growing at a healthy pace. And at the time, that meant as we were going public, we're growing in the 30s, and then we accelerated through the next year and ultimately ended up growing at around 40% for the last couple of years.
Do you regret going public?
No, it's been a great experience.
It's been good.
And it gives our customers a ton of transparency. When you're selling to large enterprise companies, one of the things that they're always wondering about is, are you going to be a key partner of theirs, 5 or 10 years from now? And having transparency in your balance sheet and your financials is a really important part of that, right? So there's nowhere to hide, right? If you're a private company, they always have that question in the back of their mind of, will you still be there for me? And this, now we can say, look, here we are.
Yeah.
We're growing, one of the fastest growing companies in the space. We're at scale and we're cash flow positive. It's a pretty simple story.
You've added to your sales call, like your sales team, there's scripted responses to overcome that objection. The response is now, we're public, right? Yeah, we'll be around.
Exactly. Go read our earnings report.
There you go. All right, Mike, let's wrap up here with the famous 5 one-word answers. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Execution. If I only get to choose one word.
Just one.
Execution by Larry Bossidy.
All right. Number 2, name a CEO in your city that you really love just jamming with over dinner. It's always a good brainstorm.
Steve Singh. He's on our board too, which is a super opportunity for me.
Steve Singh. All right. Number 3, besides your own, what's your favorite tool for building the company?
My favorite tool for building a company. Wow.
Like some online tool you use pretty frequently.
Well, I'll go to salesforce.com. Everyone uses that, right?
All right. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Between 8 and 9.
8. Okay. That's pretty healthy. Good. And then what's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
We're married. I've got 1 kid.
Married and 1 kiddo. And how old are you?
52.
All right, Mike, last question. Take us back to your 20-year-old self. What do you wish you knew?
For me, I love the experience I've had since then. So to me, it's just keep doing what you're doing. Rock and roll.
Keep doing what you're doing. You guys heard it here from Mike. He joined Talend back in 2013 after the founders launched the company. Prior to that in 2005, grew to about $50 million in ARR. He then came in, more than doubled the revenue with the sole goal of helping it get to go public. Obviously in 2016, they did go public. They're growing 40% year over year. They've got 120% net revenue expansion annually. By the way, Billy said yesterday they're doing data stacks about 110%. So Mike, you win that little battle. Their payback period is about 18 months. Their team of 900 folks based all around the world. Mike, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Thank you, Dave.